7 bone-chilling ghost stories that haunt you forever. Insane true paranormal encounters. The chilling winds howled through the deserted streets of Millbury, a once bustling town now reduced to shadows and whispers. Dark clouds loomed overhead, seeming to absorb the last remnants of daylight as night approached. The townsfolk spoke in hushed tones about the old Whitmore estate, where so many had vanished without a trace. The very air shivered with anticipation as tales of ghostly figures and eerie sounds echoed in the corners of the local bar. The first strange element was the ghostly laughter. It was said to drift through the trees like a haunting melody, echoing softly after midnight. Some claimed it belonged to a girl named Abigail, who disappeared decades ago. A chill ran down the spines of those who dared to recount the story. They painted vivid images of her standing at the window, her translucent fingers tracing the glass as she watched the world move on without her. Every night saw her return to the attic, the same spot where her laughter turned to sorrow. The townspeople felt it, deep in their bones, the sense that something beyond this realm was still very much alive. As time passed, the stories grew more twisted. Folks recalled how the shadows in the estate moved as if they had a life of their own. One man, drunk and daring, ventured too close only to return pale and wide-eyed, stuttering about a dark figure that loomed just beyond his reach. The whisperings grew heavier. "Don't go near that house," they warned, pointing fingers that shook with fear. The estate became a ghost town in itself, yet it drew a curiosity that was almost magnetic. The tension escalated with every whispered ghost story. Someone claimed to have seen a flicker of light in the attic, like a candle being lit by an unseen hand. The townsfolk gathered on the outskirts as shadows danced in the dim light. Fear mixed with intrigue, creating a heart-pounding silence. Then, a scream broke the stillness. A neighbor who had always laughed off the tale stood frozen at the gate, his chest heaving, lips quivering, as he pointed to the window where Abigail once looked. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads-up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." Back in the crowd, hearts raced as the old man stepped forward, his worn face pale and sunken. "There's more," he croaked, barely above a whisper. "Every soul that lingers in that house takes a piece of your spirit. The more you look, the more you lose." The group gasped, a mix of disbelief and concern washing over them. As the wind picked up, chilling them to the bone, they knew they were on the brink of something beyond comprehension. What would happen if someone dared to unlock the secrets of the Whitmore estate? The weight of the night pressed down, and they couldn't shake the feeling that something awaited them, lurking just out of sight. As a figure flickered at the window, curiosity sparked, urging them forward. But was it too late to turn back? And who would be the next to lose themselves in the darkness? The old man's words hovered in the air like a fog, smothering the crowd in dread. Silence wrapped around them, holding back the questions that burned in their throats. A tension twisted among the group, magnetizing their fear while grounding their curiosity. Nobody dared to move, as Abigail's apparent presence called out from the estate like a siren's song. Terry, a brave local teenager known for his reckless spirit, felt the insatiable itch for adventure pulling him closer to the estate. He glanced at his friends, their faces pale and grim. They exchanged glances filled with apprehension but also an undeniable thrill of the unknown. It was all or nothing. Terry took a step forward, his pulse racing against the icy grip of twilight. "Are you all going to stand here like scared mice?" he challenged, his voice trembling under the weight of his bravado. "I'm going in." Gasps erupted from the group, and a murmur of warnings washed over them. "Don't do it, Terry!" someone cried. "It's not safe." Yet, a flicker of defiance ignited in him. He would face the darkness. As Terry approached the gate, a gust of frigid wind tore through, rattling the branches like skeletal fingers scraping against the coffin. He pushed the creaking gate open, its mournful moan echoing the pangs of forgotten sorrow. Every step closer felt heavier, the shadows stretching out as if to ensnare him. Desperate to hold tight to his sanity, he clenched his fists, determined not to turn back. The ancient Whitmore estate loomed before him, a testament of decaying grandeur. Windows glared like hollow eyes, and the cracks in the stone walls seemed to whisper secrets. Terry reached the front door, its massive frame looming uninvitingly. Just as he hesitated to knock, a sudden noise from within cut through the silence. A thud, followed by a soft, ethereal giggle. Heart pounding, Terry took a deep breath and pushed the door open. It groaned ominously, revealing a dim-lit hallway shrouded in dust and remnants of a past life. Shadows flickered in the corners, and he could feel the air thicken around him. "Abigail?" he called out tentatively, his voice barely breaking the oppressive silence. An answer came not from the darkness but from a curtain swaying slightly, as if a faint breeze brushed against it. Terry paused, his courage teetering. The weight of unseen eyes bore into him. An inexplicable chill crawled up his spine as he stepped further into the maw of the estate. He couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was watching. Then, suddenly, the laugh echoed again. The same light-hearted chime he'd heard before, but now it felt chillingly close. Terry blinked, and as he did, a figure materialized in the corner of his vision, a girl with pale skin and bright eyes staring back, her mouth stretching into a wide, unnatural smile. "Help me!" she beckoned sweetly, her voice almost drowned by the howling wind outside, now thrumming through the walls like a heartbeat. "You have to help us." The words sent shockwaves through Terry, freezing him in place. He stumbled back, breath hitching. The stories weren't just stories. They were warnings come to life. As fear gripped him, he glanced back toward the door, but it slammed shut on its own, locking him in. Panic rose in his throat, choking him as he turned to face the apparition. Her expression shifted from playful to desperate, a flicker of something deeper behind her eyes. "Please find us before it's too late." With that, the darkness thickened, crawling toward Terry like a living entity. He could feel it reaching for him, pulling at his very essence. Would he succumb to the shadows, or would he be strong enough to fight back? The answers lay hidden among the walls, and he knew he had to find them before he lost himself entirely. What would he uncover in the depths of the Whitmore estate? And what would it demand from him in return? A weighty choice loomed, seconds ticking away like a countdown to something far more horrifying. The air around Terry crackled with an energy that felt alive, almost eager. He stood rigid, staring at the girl, her unnerving smile knitting curiosity and terror together in his gut. The strange chill enveloped him, a miasma of fear and anticipation. He had crossed a threshold into an ancient nightmare, but something fiercer than fear compelled him to press on. Who are you?" he managed to stammer, eyes darting to where the shadows converged. The girl tilted her head, and for a moment her smile slipped. "I'm Abigail," she replied, her voice lilting yet strained, as though it carried the weight of centuries. "But there's more than just me here." "What do you mean?" Panic threaded through his words, tightening his throat. The darkness thickened, pulses within it reaching out, snaking around his ankles, as if the very shadows demanded he relinquish his hope. "Terry, you're in danger," she said, stepping closer, her pale face catching what little light flickered through the long-abandoned corridors. "Others were trapped here too. They need to be freed." "Freed from what?" Terry felt the walls close around him. Over the years, he had heard the story: a lost girl, a broken family, and whispers of souls bound to the land, but standing here, confronted with a living tale, the fragility of those tales shattered in his chest. "From him," Abigail whispered, her eyes widening with urgency. "The one who binds us here. You need to find the heart of the house he guards it. If you don't, we'll all be lost forever." Terry's thoughts raced. How do I find him? How do I? But Abigail didn't let him finish. A guttural sound reverberated through the estate, suddenly cutting off their conversation, a huge, rampaging echo that seemed to emerge from nowhere, shaking the very foundation of the structure. The windows rattled, spewing forth dust like a belch from the earth itself. "Run!" she shouted, her voice carrying the command with an intense urgency. Before he comes. Before he could object, Terry turned, instinct kicking in, and bolted down the hallway. The sound of pounding footsteps followed him, crashing like thunder. Frantic thoughts clawed at his mind as he dashed down the dimly lit corridor. The old floorboards groaned with every step, whispering warnings of their own. He spotted a door at the end of the hallway, splintered with age, half open like a mouth ready to swallow him whole. The grasping shadows felt like a living thing now, hungry and relentless, snapping at his heels. "Please!" Terry cried out, desperation creeping into his voice. "What do I do?" "Find the basement." Abigail's voice echoed in his mind, intertwined with the howling wind. "He won't reach you there." Heart pounding, Terry flung himself through the door. It slammed behind him as he stumbled into a musty room laden with secrets. Faded photographs hung crookedly on the walls, faces locked in eternal frozen despair, their lifeless gazes boring into him. He could feel them pleading, begging for release. He took several deep breaths to steady himself, but the energy in the room was palpable. A shiver shot through him as the shadows seemed to recoil, pulling back just enough to let him breathe. Or was it a trick? "Which way?" he muttered to himself, every instinct screaming to turn back, to run far from this maddening place. But deep down, an insatiable desire to unveil the truth flickered, a fleeting hope to dispel the darkness forever. With only a fleeting memory of Abigail's words directing him, he moved toward a narrow staircase leading down into the depths of the house. Each step was heavy, laden with the knowledge of what lay at the bottom, an unknown terror. As he descended, an ominous presence loomed in the shadows. He could feel it, watching, biding its time. If he was to confront this entity, to fight for the trapped souls, he would have to dig deep into the very heart of darkness. Terry knew one thing for sure: the real fight was just beginning, and horrors awaited him below. The house was alive with secrets, and soon he might uncover the truth behind Abigail and the others. Torment. Would he become a legend of tragedy, or could he rewrite their fate? The darkness promised answers, but at what cost? And what if Abigail wasn't all she seemed? The basement stairs spiraled down like a gullet, narrowing until it spit Terry into a cavernous space. The air was thick with dampness and decay, the smell clawing at his throat as he stumbled into the darkness below. He paused to catch his breath, his heart beat a thunderous drum in the silence that engulfed him. Around him, old walls dripped with moisture, like they were weeping forgotten stories. A single flickering bulb hung from the ceiling, struggling to keep the shadows at bay. Each flicker tightened the knot of dread in Terry's stomach, illuminating fleeting glimpses of something lurking beyond the reach of light. "Abigail," he whispered, unsure if she would hear him down here. No answer. He pressed on, deeper into the void. The echoes of his footsteps seemed to provoke the silence, making it ripple with unseen tension. Then came a whisper, a low, mournful sound that seemed to swirl around him. He couldn't make out the words, but the essence struck fear into his core. It felt like the forgotten souls of the house were protesting his intrusion. Suddenly, a sharp crack pierced the air, and Terry jolted, nearly losing his footing. He spun around, eyes wide, searching for the source. There was nothing but darkness, stretching infinitely in every direction. "It's just the house," he muttered, attempting to reassure himself. Just the house. But then the darkness shifted. Shapes began to materialize, moving like wraiths just beyond the reach of light. Terry's breath quickened, his palms sweaty. "Is anyone there?" he called out, voice wavering. The haunting whispers coiled around him, answering him with the rusty chains of despair. In this terrifying moment, a flash of movement caught his eye. He turned toward it, heart racing. A figure stood before him, glowing faintly amid the shadows. It was a man, his features twisted in anguish. "Help us!" the apparition beckoned, his voice a gravelly echo. Who are you?" Terry stammered, feeling like the ground might swallow him whole. The spectre stepped closer, the light illuminating more of its torment. "I am the keeper of their souls," the man rasped. "But I cannot release them until the heart is found." "The heart? What do you mean?" "The heart of the house," he repeated, despair thick in his tone. It pulsates with their suffering. Find it, Terry, and you may free us all. Before he could reply, the shadows closed in, and Terry felt an icy grip tighten around his wrist. He looked down to see translucent fingers merging from the darkness, desperate for connection. Panic surged through him, and he yanked away, startled at how easy it was to slip from their grasp. "Abigail!" he shouted, and it was only then he remembered her urgency, the warning boiling in his veins. "Where do I go?" Down deeper, the spectre gasped, and with that he dissolved into the dark, leaving Terry reeling. He hesitated, fear clawing at him. Every instinct urged him to flee, but a fire surged in his chest. He couldn't turn back now, not while he had a chance to save them. With gritted determination, he pressed his body against the walls, pushing himself toward the next passageway. Cold air rushed past, like whispers trailing from mouths long silenced. The design of the basement was labyrinthine, walls twisted in ways that mirrored the confusion in his mind. As he moved, Terry noticed symbols etched into the stones, desperate marks that bore remnants of what felt like a plea, an invocation of protection, or maybe a curse. Each step built a rhythm in his heart, the urgency pulsing like a heartbeat. A sudden chill enveloped him, colder than the rest, and Terry's breath hitched. He instinctively turned to find the source when he noticed it, the flickering light at the end of the tunnel, dim and alluring. Could this be the heart? Then, a voice split the silence, a deep, rending growl that sent fear spiraling through him. "You tread where you do not belong." Terry froze, a wave of dread washing over him. Panic clawed at his chest. There was no turning back now. What lurked in the darkness might be the very thing keeping Abigail and the others trapped. Would he have the courage to confront it? His fate hung in the balance as he took a step toward the flickering light, whispering a silent plea for strength. And as he inched closer, the shadows began to stir again, shifting restlessly, and a chilling realization formed in his mind: the heart of the house was not just an object. It was alive, and it didn't want to be found. What choice would Terry make when faced with the truth of the house's dark heart? The flickering light glimmered like a dying ember, igniting more than just curiosity in Terry. It ignited a primal fear. "What if it senses me?" he thought, heart pounding as he took another shaky step forward. The growl echoed again, reverberating off the damp stone walls, each thundering syllable slicing through the darkness. "Do not approach." It seemed to warn, yet he couldn't stop. The pull of the light was magnetic, a siren-esque call that drowned out the growls and whispers. The shadows were alive around him, dancing and twisting as if they had consciousness. "Abigail," he murmured, feeling the weight of her name on his tongue. Every passing second felt like an eternity, and every inch he gained toward the glowing orb repaid him with half-formed nightmares. Then came a cold rush that made his skin crawl, wrapping around him like a living shroud. Terry choked on the oppressive air, doubling over. In that moment, he could almost sense Abigail near him, just beyond the veil of shadow, just an echo of her frantic voice. "Find me," it whispered, tinged with a haunting urgency. "Hold on. I'm coming," he cried out, pushing himself upright, fury igniting his resolve. If there was a chance, he had to take it. Armed with newfound determination, he reached the light. There, he was met with an uncanny sight, a large, pulsating orb, pulsating like a heartbeat. Drenched in sickly hues of green and yellow, it pulsated not only with light but with an energy that vibrated through his bones. "Is this it?" he gasped, feeling its power wash over him. But in the corners of his vision, shadows crawled closer, twisting into grotesque shapes, faces twisted in pain and despair, silent guardians of the heart. Their mouths opened in silent screams, and the air thickened with their anguish. "Help us," they seemed to chant, their voices blending into a haunting chorus that sent shivers down his spine. But the orb was beautiful and terrifying in its allure. He felt the tug of something darker pulling him in. The shadows pressed around him, gliding closer as he reached out toward the light. "Will you let me help you?" he whispered, fingers inches from the surface, and suddenly the room closed in on him. "Fool!" a voice rumbled from the depths of the darkness. "This isn't salvation, it's your damnation." Terry withdrew, panic racing through him. but instead of retreating, a fierce rage ignited within him. "You're lying!" he roared, voice ricocheting in the crypt-like space. The orb pulsed violently, and the shadows recoiled momentarily as if stung. Redoubling his efforts, Terry stepped forward again. He had to make a choice: either trust the pain of the past or battle against the waves of darkness that threatened to engulf him. Suddenly, he heard a soft voice that cut through the chaos, clearer than the others. "Terry, Abigail!" he shouted, desperation coursing through him. And then, a blinding flash erupted from the orb, forcing Terry to shield his eyes. As the brilliant light illuminated the basement, the shadows shrieked, terrified, furious, and desperate. In that frightening moment, Terry understood the true nature of the heart. It could free him or trap him forever. He gritted his teeth, wrestling between the darkness that claimed the lost and the chance to reach Abigail. The air crackled with tension as the pulse of the heart grew quick and frenetic, echoing their shared heartbeat. Would he save his sister, or would he become just another whisper in the shadows? The light beckoned, and something deep inside urged him on, pushing him toward the very brink of the unknown. With his last breath, he reached forward, wondering if he could break or be broken by whatever lay ahead. What price would he pay to unravel the secrets of the heart, and would it lead him deeper into the darkness or pull him closer to the light? Terry felt the pulse of the orb resonate through his hand as he made contact. His fingers slipped effortlessly into the radiant light. A rush of warmth surged through him, flooding his senses with a vivid clarity. For a moment, the fear faded, and he felt like he was floating, untethered from reality. But that sensation was fleeting. A sharp sting brought him crashing back to the gloom of the basement. The shadows roared with fury, their screams echoing within him. It was as if he had awakened something ancient and restless. He could almost hear their collective agony, a biting cold that held him, dragging him deeper into their twisted lament. He withdrew his hands swiftly, barely escaping their grasp, and the orb began to whirl, brighter, faster, a chaotic tempest of color swirling wildly. "Abigail!" he screamed again. In the chaos, he thought he heard her voice, directing his attention. "Right here! You have to!" The urge to plunge into the light was irresistible again, pulling at him like a current. Was it an offer of salvation, or a devil's bait? It didn't matter. Driven by desperation, he reached out, diving into the unknown once more. A jolt hit him as the chaos subsided. He found himself standing in a vast, endless void illuminated by the orb's glow. The boundaries of the basement faded, and before him stretched a landscape stitched from nightmares, fragments of memories unraveling all around. Faces emerged and disappeared, some familiar, some utterly alien. "Hold on tight!" shouted a figure emerging from the shadows. Terry squinted. It was Abigail. But her expression was twisted, a mix of fear and determination. "You have to believe, Terry." "Where are we?" he stammered, helpless against the tide of fear surging through him. "It's a purgatory for those lost," she said, glancing at the swirling abyss. "You can't give in. You must face them before they take you." The shadows around them swelled, morphing into legions of sorrow, their mournful faces illuminated in the orb's light. They reached out, fingers grasping and clawing, desperate to pull him closer, to consume him. Terry felt their anguish claw at his skin, a sensation that went beyond pain, pulling at the very essence of his being. "Do you remember the stories I told you?" Abigail shouted above the clamor, eyeing the darkness with steely resolve. "Those were warnings, not just tales. You have to confront your fears if you want to escape." Terry's heart raced. Could he face the specters of his past? A malevolent force reared its head, a dark figure from deep within the recesses of his memory clad in shadows. "You can't outrun what you are," it hissed, its voice like nails on a chalkboard, seeping into every corner of his mind. "No!" Terry spat defiantly, shaking his head to rid himself of the horrific figure. "I'm not letting you win." With one deep breath, he dove into the vortex of shadows, feeling their icy breath against his skin. "I'm not afraid," he bellowed. The words echoed, and with that declaration, the shadows began to recede. The orb pulsed with an empowering light. Hope filled his heart momentarily. But just when he thought he could break free, Another voice joined the chaos. Help us, help me. Terry froze. The plea was all too familiar, a voice he had sworn to protect. It didn't belong to Abigail. Mom? He whispered, the realization hitting him like a ton of bricks. And with it came a new wave of torment. Would he risk everything for her, forsaking his sister in the process? As the void swirled around him, he stood at a precipice of choice. Would he save Abigail or dive deeper to save his mother? The realization burned within him like acid. The shadows stretched wide, ensnaring him in their dark embrace, and he felt the weight of the choices looming overhead. But he had to choose now, before they closed in completely. Would he betray his sister or risk losing them both? With dread pooling in the pit of his stomach, he took a step forward into the dark. What horror awaited him on the other side, and what would the price of his choice be? Terry's heart thundered in his chest, the hollow echo bouncing off the walls of the void. Each pulse felt like a countdown, reminding him that time was slipping away. With every grain of despair that fell, he found it harder to breathe. Mom! He shouted, the sound swallowed by the darkness surrounding him. Desperation clawed at his throat, making it tight and raw. He could almost feel her presence, warmth, love cutting through the icy void. But the shadows encroached, thickened by a swirling vortex of fear. He hesitated. Abigail's desperate face loomed in his mind, her fierce determination battling the shadows. You have to believe, Terry. Her words rang out like a lament in his head, battling against the haunting whisper of his mother. It was tormenting him, and he felt the split within as if each call tugged on a piece of his soul. Mom or Abigail, he muttered, struggling between two worlds, two loves. He clenched his teeth and closed his eyes. The swirling shadows around him pulsed and swayed, their cries intertwining with his thoughts, drowning him in confusion. Suddenly, a blinding light exploded from the orb, slicing through the darkness. The shadows recoiled, their anguished faces writhing in pain under the radiance. Terry opened his eyes to find himself standing at an edge, 1 foot in a realm of despair and the other in an abyss of potential. Make your choice. Abigail's voice echoed, but his mind was a storm of memories. He saw her smile, the warmth of their shared laughter, and then images flooded in. His mother's voice lured him like a siren's song, promising comfort and safety. His chest tightened, each breath a battle. The figures of the tortured souls grew more aggressive. Their spectral hands clawed at him desperately, dragging him into their darkness. Save us! Save us all! They pleaded, their faces shifting between his mother and faceless wraiths, twisting into grotesque masks that could chill unto death. His choice settled heavy on his shoulders. A sharp pang of loss ran through him, and he stumbled on the precipice. Panic surged, and his mind raced. Could he save both? Could he save anyone at all? I'm not afraid. I choose love. He roared into the void, feeling a spark ignite within him. Light burst forth from the orb in response, surging through him like a tidal wave of strength. Tender memories enveloped him, wrapping around his heart like an unseen guardian. Believe, he murmured again, as if the word itself could build a bridge between worlds. The orb pulsed, and with it, the shadows recoiled further, their anguished screams echoing away. But just as hope began to rise, another voice emerged from the dark, a sinister laugh, low and guttural, reverberating through the air. Love one to save you, boy, the dark figure growled, congealing from the shadows, monstrous and vast. Its eyes gleamed with malice, drawing steadily closer. You are worth nothing without sacrifice. Terry's resolve shook, doubt seeped in like a cruel chill. He remembered a story he'd heard long ago about the price one must pay in battles of the heart. What if love was enough? What if he had to face unthinkable pain? As the figure advanced, the world shifted. He felt the ground beneath him tremble, the air thick with a new kind of fear. Wicked whispers of loss caressed his ears and wrapped around his heart, squeezing tight, threatening to pull him under. Would he fight? Could he save Abigail and mend the wounds of the past? Or would the darkness consume him whole? In that moment, as the shadows loomed closer, Terry felt his strength falter. Facing him was an impossible decision, one he dreaded yet knew he had to confront. And as he stood there, Teetering on the edge of oblivion, he took a deep breath and prepared to leap. What truths would this gamble unveil, and would he emerge whole or shattered? The moment Terry leaped, he felt time distort. It was like diving into a bottomless pit. The air was heavy, thick with dread, wrapping around him like cold chains. Yet all he could cling to was the flicker of hope burning within him. "Abigail!" he shouted, the name bursting from his lips as he fell. The void stretched infinitely, an unyielding darkness staring back at him with insatiable hunger. He felt the pull of the shadows, their greedy hands reaching up like ghostly tendrils, mirroring the agonized faces of lost souls. "No! I will not let you take me!" he screamed, fighting against the tide. Just as he felt himself engulfed, the light from the orb surged into him, a force of warmth, lifting him from despair's embrace. In that instant, he was surrounded by a surreal kaleidoscope of images: his mother's smile, Abigail's laughter, intertwined with swirling paths of grief and regret. Each image lashed against him, a promise and a curse all at once. When the light pierced through, it wasn't just something he saw, it was something he felt. The darkness thickened, the laughter of the shadow figure grew louder, echoing, "You think this is a sanctuary? Foolish child! The darkness knows your heart." The weight of its words squeezed his chest tight. It knew him too well, every weakness, every fear. But as another wave of memories crashed over him, he remembered his love for Abigail. He focused on it like a beacon, calling out to her. "I won't give up!" His voice echoed, resonating against the fabric of the void. That moment pure, raw love started shattering the shadows, one glimmer at a time. Desperation turned into determination, his will ignited by the power of connection. "Love is stronger!" he yelled in defiance. The shadows recoiled, their anguished cries morphing into something more primal. The ground beneath him trembled violently, and the dark figure froze. "No!" it roared, its voice a chilling storm of defeat. But Terry pushed forward, feeding off the light. He felt himself rising, ascending above the shadows. "I know for whom I fight!" he shouted, and with every pulse of defiance, the orb glowed brighter. Yet, just as he thought he might seize victory, the monstrous figure lunged forward, a black cloud swirling around him. It roared, sinister and ancient, "You will pay the price!" Pain shot through Terry, a wave of blinding agony that knocked him backward into the depths. His spirit teetered on the brink of despair, fracturing with uncertainty. Questions clawed at him: what price? Who would pay it? He gasped for breath as memories flooded back, not just of love, but of sacrifice. The story resurfaced in his memory, the tale of the hidden cost of believing. What if choosing love also meant losing someone he held dear? As the dark figure laughed, he felt the ground beneath him shift. The shadows slithered, coiling around his ankles, drags of despair threatening to anchor him in darkness. His heart raced. Could he fight this, or was he bound for more loss? Suddenly, a fierce resolve encapsulated him, echoing with the strength of every soul he wished to save. "I choose my path!" he shouted, feeling the orb pulse again beneath him. Light erupted once more, clashing with darkness, a spectacle of raw power. He screamed for Abigail, for his mother, refusing to let go. But what would the cost of his choice entail? As the darkness clashed in a final flurry, a blinding flash obscured his vision. Terry braced himself, feeling the very fabric of reality unravel, but before he could comprehend the shift, he could barely hear the chilling whisper resound, "You'll regret this, you will all pay." And then, silence, a suffocating stillness swallowed him whole. Had he succeeded? Had he failed? The answer loomed in eerie mystery, waiting just beyond the veil of reason. What new horrors awaited him in this silence, and what consequences would arise from his defiance? Terry's senses reeled in the silence. It was as if the weight of the world had pressed upon him, suffocating and heavy. He struggled to stir, trying to shake loose the fog that clouded his mind. Where was he? Had he genuinely battled the darkness, or had it all been a cruel illusion? The stillness was unsettling. There was no echo of the shadow's taunts, no flicker of the vibrant orb that had guided him. Instead, he was blanketed by an oppressive emptiness. He looked around, but the darkness was too thick to see even a glimmer of his surroundings. "Abigail!" he called, his voice trembling as it echoed into the void. No response. He swallowed hard, a lump forming in his throat. What if she was lost? Did he just trade her safety for a fleeting moment of defiance? Terry felt the chill crawl up his spine. Panic threatened to take root, but he fought it off. He steadied his breath, anchoring himself to the love he had felt before, the warmth of connection. But there was an unsettling truth gnawing at the edges of his resolve. He had ventured deep into the unknown, and every choice held a cost. The shadows had promised payment, and he could feel its whispers clawing at his sanity, a deep, gravelly hissing that danced around him. "You chose this," it seemed to hiss, "you will know loss." Cold dread surged through him. Suddenly, a shadow flickered nearby, a quick movement barely skimming the edges of his vision. He turned sharply, heart racing, but nothing was there. Then, a sound broke the silence, a low, mournful wail that pierced through the darkness. It echoed with sorrow, wrapping around him like a shroud, heavy and suffocating. The cry resonated deep within him, and he understood. It wasn't just a sound, it was a lament. A grief stretching back through time, a sorrow that belonged to the lost souls trapped in the abyss. "Who is there?" he shouted, voice breaking against the waves of sorrow. Silence, then the wail morphed into laughter, a chilling, mocking chorus that bounced back at him. "You think you can escape?" The dark voice crooned, no longer distant but hovering near, saturating the air. "You cannot deny the ties that bind. Each breath, each heartbeat, all tied to the web you've woven. Your defiance leads to devastation." "No, not true!" Terry's mind screamed in protest. He had fought for love. He couldn't let despair take root in his heart. Not now. With a surge of determination, Terry focused on the center of his being, the light that had once enveloped him. "I choose love. I do not fear you," he shouted defiantly. The shadows writhed and twisted, forming monstrous shapes that threatened to engulf him. But then, from the gloom, another figure emerged, not a shadow, but a glimmer of light. It was faint, flickering like a dying flame. Terry squinted, drawing closer as the outline became clearer. It was her, a figure who resembled Abigail, her face shimmering through the darkness like a beacon. "Help me," she whispered, the agony in her voice wrenching his heart. "Terry, don't let go." He reached out, but the darkness pulsed, pulling him back. "She's not real," the shadows howled. "You're all alone." "No!" he roared, ripping himself free from their grip. "I will not believe your lies." The light around him flared, pushing back against the encroaching shadows, but in that moment of clarity, he felt the ground beneath him shatter. Abruptly, he found himself thrown backward, tumbling through the abyss, toward a yawning chasm that opened below. "Abigail!" he cried one last time, feeling his heart crack as the light from her figure dimmed. As he fell, his screams mingled with the haunting laughter rising up to greet him. What lay below? Darkness or something worse? Whatever it was, a terrible truth gnawed at him. Was he now bound to a fate worse than death? And thus, the void whispered in return, "Welcome to your reckoning." What truth awaited him in that dark, endless fall? And would love survive in a world meant to drown it? Terry's world spun as he plummeted into the depths of darkness. Time twisted, stretching into eternity. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, a reminder of every choice he had made. Fear wrapped around him like a shroud, but he clung to the memory of Abigail's face, worn but resolute, shimmering beneath the shadows. "Don't let go!" he shouted into the silence, clenching his fists tight around the last threads of hope. Suddenly, a blinding light exploded before him, and with it came a rush of air as if an unseen force had caught him mid-fall. Terry braced himself, staggering, and was thrust back into reality. He landed hard on cold, damp stone, breathless. The haunting sounds of despair receded, leaving only silence echoing off the walls surrounding him. Feeling the thrum of energy beneath his skin, Terry slowly stood. The chamber he found himself in shimmered with the ghostly glow of the orb he had touched, flickering with vibrant colors the heart of the house. He had made it, yet, The weight of the shadows loomed behind him, restless. He could feel their hungry presence, eager to snuff out the light. You thought you could escape, a guttural voice hissed from the darkness, crawling along the walls, crawling into his brain. No! Terry shouted back. I'm here to save you. To save us all. He recalled Abigail's urgent words, the desperate cries of the lost. His spirit ignited, and he marched forward, eyes locked on the pulsating orb. As he grew nearer, it expanded, light flooding the dismal space. The shadows writhed, shrieking in fury, their distorted forms closing in, grasping at his warmth. You cannot defeat me, the voice sneered, the shadows swirling like a storm. Every leap had a consequence, and now you must face the cost. No! Terry pressed on, the light enveloping him. You're wrong! Love is the only way. The words propelled him closer to the heart, a force stronger than the shadows could conjure. The orb pulsed wildly, and from its depths faces emerged, lost souls bound to this place, their eyes wide with longing and painful recognition. He recognized them from the photographs in the estate, children caught in the grip of sorrow, pleading silently for release. Help us! Their mouths formed in desperate whispers, echoing with despair. Suddenly, the laughter of the dark figure rumbled like an ominous thunderstorm. You think they can be saved? You'll lose them, one by one. No! Terry yelled, firm in his resolve. I'll find a way. In that moment, he recalled Abigail's voice crystal clear, her determined spirit illuminating the shadows. He felt her urging him to believe that love transcended time, space, and dark curses. With fiery intent, he embraced the orb, letting the light surge through him. Energy crackled as he focused on every soul he had seen. You will be free, he declared, the warmth radiating from him spilling into the room like a tidal wave. At once, the orb exploded in a kaleidoscope of vibrant sound, illuminating the entire chamber. The shadows recoiled, screams piercing the silence, twisting and dissolving, unraveling like bad dreams dispersing with the dawn. Faces of the trapped souls blurred together, transforming from sorrowful wraiths to radiant beings, breaking the chains of the darkness that bound them. One voice rang clearer than the rest, wrapping around him like a warm embrace. Thank you, Terry. You've saved us. And there she was, Abigail, standing before him bathed in light, her smile ethereal and genuine. You did it, she whispered, her voice filled with warmth. You believed. In that moment, Terry felt the threads of despair snap, the weight of his choices crystallizing into clarity. The darkness that had once threatened to consume everything faded into an echo, merging with the light. He understood now that love could conquer even the darkest fears. Now, Abigail began, her light shimmering around them, we must go together. As they clasped hands, the chamber shimmered, dissolving into radiant energy that surrounded them in an embrace. Then, in an instant, Terry found himself standing back at the estate, the weight of his past lifted, the shadows dispersed. He stood in the light of dawn, the air fresh and alive. The townsfolk gathered, faces illuminated with hope, their eyes wide in disbelief. Terry turned back, smiles creeping onto their faces as laughter danced in the air, echoing memories of those they had lost, memories no longer marred by despair. Let us go home, he whispered, looking up at the rising sun, every heartbeat a reminder that light exists even in the deepest darkness. And with that they walked forward, toward a new beginning, stepping out of the shadows and into the embrace of a brighter day. If this story moved you, if you felt its pulse, you need to subscribe now to never miss stories that linger long after the last page. Smash the like button now, it's the moment to show your support. Flood the comments with your reactions, your theories about the story, and of what lies beyond. And don't wait even 1 second to share this conclusion with at least 5 friends who truly need to see this. There's power in knowing. Let us keep this community growing.